The sun filtered through the dense canopy of the forest, breaking into golden shafts of light that danced across the leafy floor. Every now and then a bird would chirp or a branch would snap, but otherwise the woods held their breath silent, watchful. Among the thick trees walked a man and a little girl, their steps crunching softly against the scattered leaves. To anyone passing by, it might seem like a peaceful father-daughter hike. The man was dressed far too formally for a forest stroll, dark gray slacks, polished shoes now dulled with dust, and a navy shirt tucked stiffly beneath a tailored coat. His name was Leonard Halle, and he was a name known across state lines. CEO of Halitech Enterprises, celebrated entrepreneur, charitable donor, loving family man, or so the tabloids said. But today the truth walked beside him. A small, delicate figure with big hazel eyes and soft brown curls, Clara, his 8-year-old daughter, clutched a wild flower in her hand as she bounced along, unaware of the cruel design that had brought her here. "This one smells like bubble gum, Daddy," she giggled, lifting the flower to her nose. Leonard forced a smile. "Beautiful," he said. His voice was soft, steady, but devoid of emotion. Clara didn't notice. She skipped a little ahead, humming something sweet and tuneless. Her legs were smudged with dirt, her white sundress now the color of old snow. Her sneakers were two big hand-me-downs from a cousin she hadn't seen in years. Still, she seemed happy, blissfully unaware of the tension tightening in her father's jaw. "Why did we come so far today?" she asked, turning back to him. "Is it for a picnic?" "No, darling," he replied. "It's something special." She beamed. "A surprise?" He nodded. Yes, a surprise. Leonard scanned the forest. The tree was close. The one he'd found days ago. The gnarled roots had twisted into a natural depression in the soil deep enough to hide something deadly. He'd been warned about the eastern diamondback rattlesnake nests in these woods. Warned, and then curious, and then determined. He had come back alone, scouting, preparing, and now the opportunity was perfect. No cameras, no witnesses, no more complications. Clara stopped and bent down to tie her shoe. Leonard slowed, taking a deep breath. "Come, sweetheart," he said. Clara stood, smiling up at him, cheeks flushed from exertion. "You look sweaty, Daddy." He smirked slightly. "Let's go see what I found." They reached the clearing minutes later. It was quiet, too quiet. Even the insects had stilled, as if they sensed the wrongness. Clara stared at the massive tree that dominated the clearing. Its bark was blackened in places, as though it had once been struck by lightning. Roots as thick as arms snaked across the ground, disappearing into shadowed hollows. "I don't see anything special," Clara said. Leonard crouched beside her and pointed. "Look there. See between those roots?" She leaned in. "No," she said. "What is it?" "Go look. It's just for you." She stepped forward, innocent, trusting, exactly what he counted on. Her hand brushed a root, and the nest stirred. A dry rattle, soft, almost lazy. Clara froze. What was... She didn't finish. The snake emerged like a shot of lightning gray, thick-bodied, its diamond patterns glinting like etched metal in the sun. It struck without hesitation, Clara screamed. The fangs sank into her ankle, and she collapsed instantly, shrieking in pain, clutching her leg. Blood oozed between her fingers as the snake coiled back, rattling now with fury. "Daddy," she sobbed. "It bit me. Daddy, it hurts." Leonard took a slow step back. "Daddy!" "I'll get help," he said. He turned then ran, his footsteps faded with cruel swiftness. No glance back, no hesitation. Just the snapping of twigs and rustling underbrush, and then silence. Clara lay shaking on the ground, dirt clinging to the blood seeping from her wound. Her cries grew softer as the venom began to work its way up her leg, numbing, choking, burning. The forest stood still again, holding its breath, until the sound of hooves. Distant at first, then louder, and then he appeared. From between the trees emerged a stunning white horse. Not just white, but glowing even in the shadow of the forest. His coat shimmered, untouched by mud or leaves, as if some higher hand had sent him. He stopped at the edge of the clearing, nostrils flared, eyes fixed on the scene before him. Clara raised her head weakly. She reached out. "Help, please." The horse stepped forward, slow, intentional, careful not to startle the snake, which still hovered near Clara's foot. The stallion made no sound, just watched, calculating, reading the threat, and then, in a sudden blur of motion, he reared. His hooves crashed down with terrifying precision, striking the coiled snake directly. A sickening crunch echoed through the trees. Silence again. Then the horse moved to Clara's side. She was sobbing now, too weak to keep her head up. He lowered his head, touched her forehead with his warm muzzle, and stayed. For several minutes, the horse did not move. He just stood beside her as though guarding her. His ears flicked toward every snap of twigs. His eyes never left hers. Clara whimpered. It hurts, ... It hurts. The horse let out a low snort. Then he moved again. This time he stepped around her, carefully positioning himself so she could reach his mane. Instinctively, she grabbed it, clung to it, and he knelt, a horse kneeling, as if inviting her. Clara didn't understand, but something told her to trust him. So she pulled herself up, inch by inch, crying, gasping, until she was draped over his back. Then the stallion rose and ran. Not wildly. Not recklessly. He ran with purpose, through brambles, over rocks, down narrow, forgotten trails. Clara held on as best she could, her body bouncing gently, her vision fading. But she knew somehow he was taking her somewhere safe. She didn't know who he belonged to, or why he had appeared, only that he had, and that he had saved her. The clatter of hooves echoed down the mountain trail, rhythmic and urgent, cutting through the otherwise hushed forest like a warning bell. Leaves scattered in the stallion's wake as he charged forward faster now, more desperate. Clara, barely conscious, hung limp across his back, her arms wrapped weakly around his warm, muscular neck. Her breath was shallow, her skin pale. The venom coursing through her veins had already turned her foot a mottled mix of purple and gray. Time was running out. The stallion broke the tree line. Ahead was a wide valley dotted with grazing pastures and split-rail fences. A worn farmhouse stood near the center, flanked by a faded red barn and a rickety stable with its doors wide open. A teenage girl stood inside the stable, brushing the flank of an old mule, humming softly to herself. Her long braids swung behind her as she worked, loose strands of hair sticking to her brow in the late morning heat. She looked up at the sound of approaching hooves and froze. A white stallion was galloping toward her, completely unbridled, carrying a child draped over his back. Oh my God, she dropped the brush and ran. Dad, she screamed over her shoulder. Dad, come quick. The door of the farmhouse slammed open. A man in his early 50s with calloused hands and sharp eyes burst out, shotgun in one hand, instinct driving his stride. But when he saw the horse, his steps slowed. The stallion skidded to a halt right in front of them, kicking up a cloud of dust. The girl reached for Clara immediately. It's a kid, she's hurt bad? The man rushed forward. Careful, she might be in shock. Clara's lips moved, but no sound came. Her eyes fluttered. Snake, she whispered. Snake. Get her inside, the man ordered. Put her on the couch. I'll grab the med kit and call Doc Weller. The girl helped Clara slide off the horse's back. She cradled her gently and carried her inside, the stallion watching every movement. As they laid Clara down, the man entered with an old canvas bag and a phone already dialing. Venom, he muttered. She's lucky to be alive. Outside, the white stallion paced the porch like a sentinel. 30 minutes later, the living room was transformed into a makeshift medical station. Bottles of antiseptic, rolled gauze, and a cold compress sat on the table beside Clara's flushed face. The girl, who introduced herself as Lena, kept wiping Clara's brow with a damp cloth. She was already burning up when he brought her here, Lena said. And her leg, Dad? It looks bad. I gave her a shot of antivenom, said Tom Bryant, her father. One of the last vials I've got. Let's hope it holds until the doc gets here. Lena nodded, then peeked out the window. The white stallion stood under the oak tree now, his body perfectly still, his eyes locked on the house. He hasn't moved, she whispered. Tom walked over, joined her at the window. That's no ordinary horse. You think he belongs to someone? Tom shook his head. No shoes, no saddle, no brand. He came out of nowhere like he knew what he was doing, Lena looked at her father. He saved her. Tom didn't reply immediately. Instead, he stepped out onto the porch. The stallion raised his head slightly. Tom approached slowly, cautiously. You knew she needed help, didn't you? The horse stared back. Not wild, not panicked, just present. Tom reached out a hand, palm up. The stallion sniffed it, then gently bumped it with his muzzle. Tom exhaled. You're something else. By evening, the local doctor, Doc Weller, had arrived. He was thin, gray-haired, and spoke with a voice that always sounded like he was just waking up from a nap. She's stable, he told the Bryants after checking Clara over. If you hadn't gotten that antivenom in her, she wouldn't have lasted another hour. Tom nodded. She didn't get here by accident. Doc looked out the window. That horse? He brought her, Lena said. Straight to the barn. Like he knew. Doc raised an eyebrow, but didn't question it. Well, whoever she is, she's a tough little fighter. Tom nodded. But how the hell did she get bitten and abandoned? Lena looked back at Clara, now sleeping, her leg bandaged, chest rising slowly. Someone left her out there, Doc frowned. You think it was an accident? I don't think anyone accidentally walks away from a kid with a venomous bite. Tom turned toward Lena. Call Sheriff Wyatt in the morning. Let him know we've got a girl might be listed missing. Lena nodded, already thinking ahead. I'll also check the local news, social media, missing child reports. Doc Weller packed up his kit. In the meantime, keep her rested. Fluids. Watch that fever. And don't let her near that leg. She might not feel it, but it could get infected. He paused before heading out. And if you find out who did this? Tom's jaw clenched. We'll make sure they pay. The next morning, Clara stirred. Lena was sitting nearby, sketching in a notebook. She perked up immediately. Hey, you're awake. Clara blinked slowly. She tried to speak, but her voice was raw. It's okay, Lena said softly. You're safe now. Clara's eyes welled with tears. The horse. He's still here, Lena said, smiling, right outside. Clara turned her head toward the window, and there he was. Standing beneath the same oak tree, the stallion waited, watching. Lena brought her water, helped her drink. Can you tell me your name? Clara, she whispered. Clara Halle. Lena froze. Halle? Tom looked up from the kitchen. Leonard Hale's daughter? Clara nodded weakly. He said we were going hiking. I thought it was fun. Then he told me to look near the tree. There was a snake. It bit me. I screamed. He ran away. Tom's face darkened. On purpose? Clara's lip quivered. He looked right at me, and he left. Tom sat down heavily. Leonard Halle, that bastard. Yes, the one who bought out 3 farms on this side of the county last year? Lena said. Ran 2 families out. And now he's trying to get rid of his own kid, Tom muttered. Probably thinks no one would find her. Lena shook her head, but the horse did. They turned to the window again. The stallion hadn't moved. Clara reached for Lena's hand. Please, don't let him take me back. You're safe, Lena said firmly. We won't let him near you. Tom nodded. She's staying here until the law says otherwise. And maybe not even then. Outside, the wind shifted. A crow called from the trees. The stallion raised his head sharply. His ears flicked toward the ridge at the far end of the property. Someone was coming. It was just after dawn when the first vehicle appeared on the horizon, a sleek, black SUV that didn't belong on back roads like this. Its tinted windows reflected the rising sun, and the rumble of its engine cut across the stillness like a growl. Clara, still groggy but improving, sat up on the couch with a blanket wrapped around her. When she saw Lena tense at the window, she followed her gaze. The color drained from her face. That's his car, she whispered. That's my dad's. Tom stepped onto the porch as the SUV crunched into the gravel drive. His shotgun leaned quietly against the wall behind him, not in his hands, not visible, but close enough. He folded his arms as the engine cut off and the driver's door opened. Leonard Halle stepped out in a dark suit with a crisp tie and shoes far too polished for dirt roads. He looked the same as always, impeccable, calculated, cold, but his eyes scanned the porch with a twinge of urgency he couldn't quite hide. Tom didn't greet him. Leonard cleared his throat and forced a practiced smile. "Good morning." "Depends on what you're here for," Tom replied evenly. Leonard tilted his head slightly. "I believe you have someone who belongs to me." Tom's jaw tensed. "You referring to the little girl who nearly died in the woods with a venomous bite? The one who was half dead when a horse carried her here?" Leonard's smile faltered, just for a second. "There was an accident. I've been looking for her." Tom didn't move. "Funny, she says you left her there." "She's confused," Leonard said quickly. "She was delirious." "She doesn't understand." "No," Tom cut in. "She remembers. She remembers everything." Leonard's nostrils flared, but his tone remained calm. "I'm her father, legally. You're harboring a minor." "And you're a criminal," Lena said from the doorway. "Or at the very least a monster," Leonard ignored her. "You have no right to keep her here." Tom stepped forward, his boots scuffing the dirt. "I have every right to protect a child who was left to die. Until the sheriff and child services get here, you're not setting one foot in this house." Leonard's mask of civility began to crack. "You don't know who you're dealing with." "I know exactly who you are," Tom said. "You're the man who ran 3 families off their land. You're the man who buried a girl's future because she didn't fit your perfect image. And you're the man who was about to get away with it until a horse outdid your humanity." Leonard's gaze flicked to the white stallion still standing beneath the oak tree. Their eyes met, and Leonard stepped back. "I'll be back," he said. "With the law." He turned sharply, got in his car, and sped away. Lena ran to the porch. "What do we do now?" "We prepare," Tom said. By noon, Sheriff Wyatt had arrived. A tall man in his 50s with sun-cracked skin and boots that had seen too many dirt roads. He listened intently as Clara, with Evelyn's help called in by Lena earlier, retold everything from the hike to the snake, to her father turning his back and disappearing, to the white stallion who came out of nowhere. Wyatt nodded slowly, jaw tight. "I believe her. But proving intent's another story. He left her for dead," Lena snapped. "That's intent enough. He'll deny it. He'll say it was a panic, a mistake." Tom handed the sheriff Clara's sketchpad. She had drawn everything step by step: the snake, the car, the forest, and the horse. Each image sharp, raw, filled with clarity no 8-year-old should be able to convey unless she had lived it. "She's telling you," Tom said, "in ways no adult could." Wyatt studied the drawings, then looked out the window at the horse. "He's been here the whole time? Hasn't left?" Lena said. "Not once." Wyatt walked outside, stopping a few feet from the stallion. He stared at the animal in silence. The horse watched him back, like it understood everything. "This horse, he's the reason she's alive," Tom nodded. "And the reason we even know what happened." They came in. Legal gears turned fast after that. Evelyn reached out to Child Protection. Clara was placed under temporary protective custody at the Bryant farm. A court date was set. Leonard Hale's lawyers arrived the next morning. Polished suits, eyes behind mirrored sunglasses, armed with threats and paperwork. But the Bryants stood firm. "You don't scare us," Lena told them. "You should be scared of what the truth will do to your client." Clara stayed mostly quiet, but she grew stronger every day. Her strength wasn't loud, but it was unshakable. Every morning she visited the white stallion. She brushed his mane. She whispered her thanks. And every morning he greeted her the same way, standing tall, unmoving, eyes filled with a knowing kind of peace. He had chosen her, and she had chosen him. The night before the hearing, Clara had a nightmare. She woke screaming, drenched in sweat. Lena ran to her side. "It's okay, it's okay." Clara clutched her arms. "He was there. He left me again." "He won't ever hurt you again," Lena whispered. "You're not alone anymore." "I want to tell them everything," Clara said. I want to tell the judge." "You will," Lena promised, "and we'll be right beside you." Outside the window, the horse lifted his head. He turned toward the east toward the road. The wind shifted, and he stomped once. A sound like thunder in the dirt, like a promise. The county courthouse was small and old, its brick facade cracked in places, the wood of the double doors worn down by years of storms and justice alike. On the morning of Clara's custody hearing, the flag outside flapped in a nervous wind, and townsfolk gathered in small clusters just beyond the courthouse steps. Rumors had spread of a powerful man and a little girl rescued by a wild white horse. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Leonard Halle sat at the front with his lawyers, calm as ever, his navy suit sharp, his hair immaculately combed. He looked more like a keynote speaker at a tech convention than a father fighting for custody. But every now and then, his eyes darted toward the side of the courtroom, where Clara sat nestled safely between Lena and Tom. She wore a clean dress this time, her hair gently braided, the faint trace of a bandage peeking from beneath her skirt. Evelyn Beatrice sat beside her, holding a folder stuffed with documentation, medical records, drawings, statements, and that all-important letter Clara had written the night before. The judge entered. Honorable Ruth Delaney, a woman known for her patience, her no-nonsense rulings, and her terrifying ability to spot lies within seconds. She took her seat at the bench and adjusted her glasses. "This court is now in session regarding the temporary custody of Clara Halle." The first hour was procedural. Leonard's lawyers spoke of misunderstandings, of emergency circumstances, of regretful panic. They claimed Leonard had gone to get help. They offered a log of phone calls, one placed to emergency services the morning after Clara had been found. A call too little, too late. But when they asked the court to return Clara to her father, the judge didn't even glance at Leonard. She looked to the child. "Miss Clara," she said gently, "would you like to speak?" Clara's hands trembled. Lena touched her arm. "You can do this." Clara stood. The courtroom held its breath. She walked slowly to the front, clutching her sketchpad in one hand and Evelyn's signed letter in the other. She sat both gently on the judge's bench, then turned to face the room. "I don't want to go back," she said, her voice small but clear. "Tell us why," the judge said, folding her hands. "He didn't want me," Clara replied. "He never did. When my mom died, he only visited sometimes. Then he came one day and said I was going to live with him. And did you want that?" Clara shook her head. "No, he didn't like when I made noise, or when I couldn't understand things right away. He said I was too much trouble." Leonard's jaw tensed. Clara looked directly at him. "Then he took me hiking. I thought it was special. But he told me to go look at something under a tree. There was a snake. It bit me. I screamed. Tears welled in her eyes. He looked at me, and he walked away." A gasp rippled through the gallery. The judge nodded slowly. "What happened next?" "I thought I was going to die," Clara whispered. "Then the horse came." She pointed toward the courthouse window. Outside, tied gently to a tree near the sidewalk, stood the white stallion, unbothered by the traffic, by the whispers. Just waiting. "He found me," Clara continued. "He brought me to Lena and Tom. They took care of me. They listened. They stayed." Judge Delaney studied her for a long moment, then turned to Leonard. "Mr. Halle, would you like to respond?" Leonard stood. He adjusted his cuffs and cleared his throat. "With all due respect," he began, "children have vivid imaginations. I've been under tremendous pressure, my business, travel, shareholders. I thought Clara needed nature. A reset. I didn't realize she was bitten. When I saw she wasn't with me, I panicked and went for help." "You didn't call anyone until the next morning," the judge said flatly. Leonard hesitated. "Cell service was poor, no record of 911 attempts, or even local rangers." Silence. Leonard's mask began to slip. The judge leaned back in her chair. "I've reviewed the drawings. I've reviewed the statement. I've reviewed the report from the sheriff and the testimony from Dr. Weller. What I see here is not a misunderstanding. It's abandonment." Leonard's face went red. "Objection," one of his lawyers barked. "Overruled," the judge said sharply. "Your client left a child in the woods after a venomous snake bite and made no meaningful effort to retrieve her. I find the conduct not only negligent but inhumane." She looked to Clara. Do you wish to remain with Tom and Lena Bryant? Clara nodded. Is that your choice? Yes, she whispered. The judge smiled faintly. Then by the authority vested in this court, I am granting permanent custody of Clara Halle to the Bryant family. Effective immediately. Cheers erupted from the back rows. Lena swept Clara into a hug, crying openly. Tom stood and gave Leonard one final glareful of everything a real father should feel: rage, protectiveness, love. Leonard didn't speak. He turned on his heel and stormed from the courtroom, his lawyers scrambling to keep up. Outside, the white stallion let out a long, loud whinny, a call that echoed through town. A call of freedom. Later that week, Clara stood in the pasture as the sun dipped below the hills. She wore jeans now, a faded flannel and boots slightly too big, but they were hers. Lena brushed the stallion's back as Clara held a tin of oats. You've been waiting for this, huh? Lena said, smiling. Clara nodded. Do you think he'll stay? Lena looked at the horse, who now grazed peacefully in the field beside the barn. I think he already chose. They watched as he lifted his head, ears twitching, eyes fixed on Clara. He walked to her and lowered his head. Clara pressed her forehead against his. Thank you, she whispered. He closed his eyes. Lena stepped back, and for a moment the wind slowed. The trees leaned in, and the last rays of sunlight turned the horse's coat to pure silver, like a guardian, like a promise. It had been 3 weeks since the courtroom thundered with the sound of justice. The Bryant farm was different now, warmer somehow, as if it too had been holding its breath for Clara and could now finally exhale. The pasture glowed golden under the late afternoon sun. The barn smelled of fresh hay, and the rhythmic clatter of hooves echoed gently between its walls. Clara had changed too. Not overnight, but in soft, steady waves, like spring thawing the ground after a hard winter. She smiled more. She asked questions. She laughed, shy and light, like the breeze that rustled through the tall grass. And every morning, before breakfast, she walked barefoot into the pasture with a brush in one hand and a bucket of oats in the other. Waiting for her was the white stallion. He had no name still. Clara didn't want to give him one, not yet. Some names, she told Lena, are too small for something that big. Lena never argued. She simply watched. Clara would sit beside him for hours, sometimes talking, sometimes silent, but always connected. A little girl whose soul had been cracked in the forest, slowly being stitched back together by something ancient and powerful. The locals started calling him Ghost for how silently he moved, for how he had appeared from nowhere, and for the legend now growing around him. Because legends were being whispered. In the bakery, at the feed store, by the diner booths and post office counters, the story of the rich man who left his daughter to die, and the horse who didn't let her. Reporters called. None got past the front gate. A few tried to follow up with Leonard Halle, but he had gone silent. Withdrawn from the board of Halotech, sold 2 properties. Some said he'd left the state. Others swore they saw him at a clinic for high-profile recovery, but Clara never asked about him. She didn't need to. What mattered was here. What mattered was who stayed. One afternoon, Clara came running into the kitchen with her sketchpad flapping. Tom, Lena! Look! She flipped the pages to a fresh drawing. It was the pasture, the barn, Lena brushing a horse, Tom chopping wood, and in the middle her, with a giant white stallion bowing beside her. Only this time, there was something new. A small golden heart around the horse's neck, drawn like a necklace. Inside it, a name, Hope, Lena gasped. Tom turned away and wiped his eyes with a calloused hand. You named him? Lena asked. Clara nodded. Not for what he is, for what he gave me. Lena dropped to her knees and hugged her tightly. Tom crouched beside them. You gave us something too, Clara. She tilted her head. You reminded us what it means to protect, what it means to listen. She looked up at them both. Can I stay forever? Tom smiled. As long as you want. Outside, the wind carried a whinny. Ghost Hope was waiting, that night. The stars burned bright in a velvet sky. Lena helped Clara climb onto Hope's back for the first time, not draped over in pain, but sitting tall, her hands confident on his mane. They rode slow at first down the worn trail behind the farm. Lena followed on foot, flashlight in hand, but didn't lead. She let Clara choose the path. Eventually they reached the edge of the forest. Clara stopped Hope and looked out at the trees. Lena caught up and stood beside her. "You okay?" Clara nodded. "I wanted to see where it happened, where it ended." Lena stayed silent. Clara ran her hand down Hope's neck. "But it didn't end there, did it?" "No," Lena whispered. "That's where it began." Clara turned back toward the farm, toward the future. And for the first time, she didn't feel afraid. Weeks passed. School started. Clara began lessons at home, Evelyn returning weekly to help her catch up. She was quick. Absorbed things like dry ground takes rain. The farm became busier too. Families began visiting. Some brought kids, some brought stories. One day, a mother arrived with her son, quiet, nonverbal, hesitant. He didn't speak much. But when Clara introduced him to Hope, his eyes widened. And when he gently touched the horse's side, his mother gasped. "He's never gone near animals before," she said. Hope didn't move. Just waited. The boy smiled, and Clara smiled too, a spark. A beginning. Tom and Lena decided to build a new stable. To make room, not just for horses, but for healing. They named it Clara's Meadow. A place for second chances. A year later, on the anniversary of her rescue, Clara woke early. She walked out into the pasture. The sky was pink with dawn. Hope was there. But something was different. He stood at the far fence, facing the hills. She approached. He turned and touched his nose to her cheek, then stepped back just a little, as if saying goodbye. Clara's eyes filled with tears, but not fear. She knew, somehow she knew. "Thank you," she whispered, "for finding me." Hope gave one last gentle snort and walked toward the horizon. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. Clara watched until he vanished beyond the hill. Months passed. They never saw him again. But his presence remained in stories, in drawings, in the hearts of every child who came through Clara's meadow. And on the fence outside the barn hung a wooden sign. It read, "He carried her from death to life." He left behind not hoofprints, but hope. And beneath it, carved in careful lettering, in honor of the white stallion who chose to stay, the end.